Cuba's impending crisis this Monday night. Why Air Canada is now suspending flights to the island.
We knew there were problems.
And what it means for tourists trying to get out. Katherine O'Hara's cause of death. The medical examiner reveals how the beloved Canadian acting legend died. Ransom deadline.
We are at an hour of desperation.
Savannah Guthrie's 11th hour message to the public and the latest on the search for her mother. Plus, a celebration of diversity.
We need to feel the visibility.
Why Bad Bunny's Super Bowl halftime show was much more than just a concert.
Global National with Donna Friesen. Reporting tonight, Jeff Semple.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. Cuba has long been a popular winter holiday destination for Canadians, but Air Canada is now suspending all flights to the Caribbean nation after Cuban officials said they expect the island's main airport to run out of jet fuel as early as tomorrow. Cuba has historically relied on fuel from Venezuela, but U.S. President Donald Trump is now blocking those exports. Air Canada says it's sending empty planes to the island to bring thousands of Canadian travelers home. Touria Izri has our top story tonight.
Air Canada is dropping Cuba from its list of winter getaways as the country's fuel supply dwindles.
We knew there were problems coming in, but nothing escalating as quick as it is right now.
The airline is canceling flights for the rest of the season to one of the main travel destinations for Canadian tourists.
You're seeing power shortages. Generators are not having enough fuel. You're seeing cars unable to gas up. You're seeing airports, shutting down.
The Cuban government warned international airlines jet fuel would no longer be available as of Tuesday. In a statement, Air Canada says it will operate empty flights southbound to pick up approximately 3,000 customers already at destination and return them home, while other carriers say they're offering flexible rebooking or cancellation options. There are millions of Cubans who can't leave, with the country's economy in freefall, its electric grid failing, and oil reserves drying up.
The Secretary General is extremely concerned about the humanitarian situation in Cuba, which will worsen, if not collapse, if its oil needs go unmet.
After the United States captured Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro, the Trump administration blocked Venezuelan oil shipments to Cuba and threatened to slap tariffs on any nation sending fuel there.
It's a failed nation now, and they're not getting any money from Venezuela, and they're not getting any money from anywhere.
For money, Cuba relies heavily on tourism. This Montrealer traveled to the country with his father and hopes their WestJet flight leaves on schedule.
50% of the resort are Quebecers and the other 50% are from Ontario. It's 99% Canadians here.
Uncertainty for tourists and locals as cancellations deal a new blow to an already fragile economy. Touria Izri, Global News, Montreal.
The cause of death for Canadian acting legend Katherine O'Hara has now been revealed. O'Hara's death certificate says she died from a pulmonary embolism, which is caused by a blood clot in a lung artery. The certificate also says she was battling rectal cancer. The star of Home Alone, Schitt's Creek, among many other films and TV shows, died last month at her home in L.A. at 71. A ransom deadline has now passed in the apparent kidnapping of Nancy Guthrie. The mother of NBC Today Show host Savannah Guthrie has been missing for over a week. The family received a message from someone claiming to be the kidnapper, demanding $6 million by 5 p.m. Mountain Time today. Savannah also posted a video update late this afternoon. Our Jackson Proskow is tracking the latest developments from Washington. Jackson.
Jeff, the search is in its 9th day, and there are still no suspects and no firm leads in the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie, mother of NBC Today co-host Savannah Guthrie. A short time ago, Savannah Guthrie released a new video on Instagram saying that the family is in an hour of desperation ahead of a deadline of tonight to pay a $6 million ransom in Bitcoin for the safe return of her mother.
We believe our mom is still out there. We need your help. Law enforcement is working tirelessly around the clock trying to bring her home, trying to find her. She was taken and we don't know where.
Now, this ransom demand was first reported by a local TV station, which received a note that included a threat to Guthrie's life. But beyond that, there have been no updates from investigators. And what remains so unusual about this case, according to experts, is how it's all playing out in public.
Because what happens when you make these ransom notes or demands public, it increases the risk of being caught. It increases, law enforcement involvement. And it also complicates, their control over the situation.
Now, the fact that this ransom demand is in Bitcoin would make it very difficult to trace once paid. The agonizing question for investigators and the Guthrie family is whether the deadline is truly firm and whether they will have more contact from whoever took Nancy Guthrie. Jeff?
Jackson Proskow in Washington. Thanks, Jackson. Police in the UK say they're now looking into allegations that former Prince Andrew shared confidential trade documents with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The fallout from the Epstein scandal is sparking calls for the British Prime Minister to resign. Two of Keir Starmer's top aides have already stepped down in the wake of the revelations. As Vincent McAvini reports from London, members of the royal family are also facing pressure, prompting a rare response from King Charles.
Prime Minister, are you going to resign?
Damaged but not defeated. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has only been in office 18 months, yet at points on Monday it looked as though his time might be up. Over the weekend, his chief of staff resigned, taking responsibility for having recommended appointing Peter Mandelson as ambassador to Washington, despite his known links to the late financier and convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Starmer's communications chief then quit on Monday morning, before the leader of his Labour Party in Scotland called for Starmer himself to go. Starmer's cabinet subsequently came out one by one to support him. Crucially, Angela Rayner, Starmer's former deputy and his biggest challenger for the leadership from the backbenches, also backed him ahead of a meeting with all of his MPs. Meanwhile, there was more bad news for the British royal family. Over the weekend, further evidence emerged of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor having entertained Jeffrey Epstein and young women at Buckingham Palace. A police investigation has also begun into allegations the former prince shared confidential information from his time as a government trade envoy with Epstein. On Monday, for the second time in a week, King Charles was heckled by a member of the public about his brother's relationship with the convicted paedophile.
Charles! How long have you known about Andrew and Epstein?
The perilousness of the situation not lost on Prince William, who ahead of a trip to Saudi Arabia released his first statement on the scandal, with a spokesperson saying, "The Prince and Princess have been deeply concerned by the continuing revelations. Their thoughts remain focused on the victims."
The impact of the Epstein files is certainly being felt much stronger on this side of the Atlantic, with both the political establishment and the Crown unsteadied by the revelations. Tonight, the King's spokesperson has said Buckingham Palace will support the police with their inquiries if asked. In Washington, Ghislaine Maxwell, the only person convicted for aiding Epstein's crimes, appeared before Congress, but refused to answer questions unless US President Donald Trump gives her a clemency deal. Jeff?
Vincent McAvini in London. Thanks, Vinny. Ontario's police watchdog has announced a province-wide probe into police corruption. It follows the news last week that 8 current and former Toronto police officers allegedly supported known criminals to commit a series of violent crimes. Those officers now face a slew of charges, including bribery, drug trafficking, and even assisting in a murder plot. Colin DeMello has more on the response from Ontario's Inspector General of Policing. Colin.
The allegations of corruption has been met with an unprecedented response. Toronto police say the suspended officers could be stripped of their paychecks. And Ontario's Inspector General of Policing is launching the first ever system-wide review to ensure these forces can actually catch corruption. In the wake of the shocking allegations rocking Toronto police, forces across the province are feeling the impact.
Trust and integrity are key and vital roles for police officers. Without that trust, it's almost impossible to serve your communities.
In a sweeping investigation dubbed Project South, 7 Toronto police officers and 1 retired officer were among 27 people arrested. The investigation included allegations of bribery, drug trafficking, and conspiracy to commit murder. The corruption-related charges have now led to larger questions about how police forces in Ontario guard against it.
If there are vulnerabilities within the systems currently in place in Ontario's policing sector, or in the standards that it must adhere to, it is essential that they are identified so meaningful, system-wide improvements can be made.
For the first time in Ontario history, all 45 police forces, including Ontario Provincial Police, will be placed under the microscope. Ontario's Inspector General of Policing will look into how officers are supervised and how effective that supervision is, the ongoing screening and vetting of police officers, their access to police databases, evidence and property management, and substance abuse and fitness for duty.
We are not looking at individual conduct. That is not our role. We are not looking at criminal conduct. That's obviously the role of this ongoing investigation. We are looking at whether or not the systems in place for things like recruitment and vetting, access to IT and information systems, are strong enough.
The inspection was requested by the Toronto Police Service, which is now launching its own internal review.
That will look at our internal processes, practices, and everything that we do to ensure that we're responding as quickly as we can.
The Inspector General is offering no timeline. It's a probe that police agencies appear to welcome.
This is amongst the greatest betrayals that I've ever seen in my career, and one that is the reason why I'm supportive of the Inspector General's work.
Hoping it'll restore trust across the province. The Inspector General says any final report will be made public, as will the recommendations to police forces. Those recommendations will be binding. At Queen's Park, I'm Colin DeMello. Back to you.
Thank you, Colin. Well, another day, another angry threat from the U.S. president. In a social media post this evening, Donald Trump singled out Canada and threatened to block the opening of the new Gordie Howe Bridge connecting Windsor, Ontario and Detroit. In a 400-word post, Trump listed several complaints, from U.S. alcohol being pulled from Canadian shelves to claims that Canada wants to make a deal with China, which the U.S. president claims would spell the end of ice hockey and the Stanley Cup. Finally, Trump said he will not allow that newly built bridge to open until the U.S. is, quote, fully compensated for everything we have given them. The $6.5 billion bridge was funded entirely by the Canadian government and was expected to open early this year. A Canadian Olympian's dream comes true. Coming up, relief and redemption as another Canadian climbs the podium. To Olympic news now. Canadian freestyle skier Megan Oldham has won Canada's second medal of the Winter Games. The 24-year-old from Parry Sound, Ontario, is bringing home the bronze, and she still has another event to go. Mike Armstrong is in Italy for us. So, Mike, some redemption for Oldham after her previous Olympic Games.
Absolutely right, Jeff. Imagine this. 4 years ago, Megan Oldham missed making the podium at the last Olympics by one spot. Today, she climbed onto it.
I was really just like trying to keep myself present and moving. And
Oldham had to fight off pressure and pain to reach that podium. Taking to the slopes for her big final run, she was banged up after a crash the run before. Oldham says she focused her mind on the skiing to ignore the soreness.
My muscles for sure were really tight. So I was going up just like hoping that the pain wouldn't set in too much before my third run.
In slopestyle, each skier gets 3 runs. Their best score is the one that counts. Oldham kept her best for last. Her final run put her in 3rd place, and it held up.
It still feels a bit like a dream. I'm trying to let it set in a bit more. But yeah, this has been a dream of mine for so long. So I'm so proud of myself.
Now, this was very much a story of resilience. At the last games in Beijing, Oldham missed reaching the final of slopestyle by 1 spot. She made the final in big air, but finished 4th.
Here, being able to get 1 step higher and be in 3rd place, I think just so much emotion, and I'm so proud of myself.
Now, Oldham still has another event, big air, this coming weekend. But with a medal around her neck, much of the pressure that she carried into these games is now gone, and she hopes that helps. Jeff?
Mike Armstrong in Milan. Thank you, Mike. Away from the Olympic spotlight, an emotional hockey game was held in southern Alberta this weekend to honor 3 junior players killed in a highway crash last week. The memorial raised funds for the families of J.J. Wright, Cameron Casorso, and Caden Fine. It was also a chance to share stories about the 3 teens who made a lasting impression on their team and community.
Nicest kid off the ice, but when he's strapped out, I mean, he was a beast, man. He wasn't going to take anything from anybody, and messed with one of his buddies, and he was going to let you know it.
It's very helpful to see the positive impacts that the boys have had on so many people, and it's not just Jay, it's through their lives.
The 3 players were killed driving to hockey practice. Their vehicle collided with a semi-truck while trying to cross a divided highway. Alberta's government says it's reviewing whether changes need to be made to that intersection. Still ahead, what new polling reveals about support for Alberta separatism and the role of the news media. New opinion polling suggests support for Alberta independence remains low, and it also revealed that Albertans for and against separation are receiving their news and information from much different sources. Heather Yerkes-West breaks down the results.
The lineups to sign the petition have been long, but across Alberta, new polling suggests support for an independent Alberta remains in the minority. According to a survey by Angus Reid, just 29% of respondents say they would vote for Alberta to leave Canada, compared to 65% who say they would vote to stay. But among United Conservative Party voters, that number of those voting to leave jumps to 57%, with only 38% voting to stay.
This is a really challenging situation for any current sitting right-of-center politician, whether you're Danielle Smith or whether you're Pierre Poilievre. The problem is that you're beholden to 2 camps within your own party base.
I didn't sign the petition. While former Prime Minister Stephen Harper may have spoken out in support of a united Canada last week, Alberta's Premier has been less clear, choosing to say consistently that she supports a sovereign Alberta within a united Canada. 54% of those polled say they do not approve of how Smith has been handling the issue so far. Polling also found the 2 camps are getting their news in very different ways, with those voting to leave getting information mostly from alternative media sources, as well as family and friends, making a pro-separation campaign, according to this political scientist, vulnerable to disinformation and foreign interference.
It's already happening. Yeah. I've been making the case that there's already American interference. And that's going to continue. There are alternative media sources that are private companies. How many subscriptions, how much money are they getting from outside of Canada? We simply don't know.
The group behind the separatism petition will not say how many signatures they've collected so far. They have until May 2nd to collect close to 178,000 in order to trigger a referendum. Heather Yerkes-West, Global News, Calgary.
Hong Kong media tycoon Jimmy Lai has been sentenced to 20 years in prison in a case that's come to define Beijing's crackdown on that city. The 78-year-old pro-democracy billionaire was convicted last year of 2 counts of conspiracy to collude with foreign forces and 1 for publishing seditious material. Lai, who founded the now closed Apple Daily newspaper, denied the charges against him, saying in court that he's a political prisoner. The United Nations Commission for Human Rights criticized the sentence and called for Lai's release.
Our office has reviewed the verdict against Jimmy Lai and is concerned that it criminalises the exercise of freedom of association and expression, including media freedoms, rights which are protected under international human rights law.
The Canadian government, among others, also called for Lai's immediate release due to his age and poor health. China and Hong Kong's governments have rejected all international criticism of Lai's prosecution. Celebrating culture in the middle of a culture war. Up next, the reaction to Bad Bunny's Super Bowl performance. Welcome back. There's been a Super Bowl-sized reaction to last night's halftime show by Bad Bunny, including celebration from the Latin community and backlash from the U.S. president and his followers. As Heidi Petracek explains, the artist focused on unity despite that divide.
Bad Bunny emerged from a sugarcane field during his Super Bowl halftime show, a Puerto Rican flag with a light blue triangle in his hand.
And that's our original Puerto Rican flag, just like what we as Puerto Ricans live, whether you're on the island here in the States wherever in the world, like that was culture. And I think that was his main message.
The artist's historic all-Spanish performance included must-see moments, power poles used to represent Puerto Rico's chronic blackouts, a real wedding, and plenty of nods to the next generation. Watch parties organized from Pennsylvania.
Reminder of, we're here, we're part of this country.
All the way to San Juan, Puerto Rico. The celebrations, dubbed Benito Bowls, a nod to Bad Bunny's birth name. In the times we're living in, said this fan, we have to come together as cultures. Monday, Mexico's president hailed the performance. The message was one of unity for America, for the American continent, she said. The American president, not a fan of the performance. Donald Trump posting online it was, quote, absolutely terrible, one of the worst ever. Trump didn't say if he watched this instead, an alternate halftime show dubbed All American, streamed online by conservative group Turning Point USA. Prominent Republicans like Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth posting that's what his family would be watching instead.
Bad Bunny made Pan-Americanism cool. He was not going to alter the party, but he invited everyone to it.
This shout out to Canada, part of Bad Bunny's final number, listing nations throughout the Western Hemisphere. The performer hoisting a football with the message, together we are America. Heidi Petracek, Global News, Halifax.
And that is Global National for this Monday night. I'm Jeff Semple. Tonight's Your Canada is this snowy cottage on Clinto Lake near Dorset, Ontario. We love seeing your Canada, so please email your photos to globalnational@globalnews.ca. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.